Let's talk everything you need to know about the work part of your work and holiday visa. Hi friends, it's Marissa. Welcome back to So You Want to Move to Australia in 2025. Let's talk everything you need to know about the work part of your work and holiday visa. So you have your work and holiday visa, you've moved to Australia, maybe you've traveled around a little bit and decided that you want to settle somewhere. Now it's time to find a job. So I am referencing the Australian immigration website just to go over some of the requirements and restrictions when it comes to working in Australia on the 462 work and holiday visa. I will say that there aren't too many restrictions with the work and holiday visa. As far as the type of work you can do, you can pretty much do anything. According to the immigration website, you can only work for the same employer for 6 months at a time. There are certain industries that do not follow this rule, and everything can be found on the immigration website. I will put the link in the description for you. The other requirement for working in Australia is that you do have to pay taxes in Australia. Paying taxes is pretty straightforward. In my experience, every time that I've had a job in Australia, when I fill out my new hire paperwork, it is just within that there is a section for work and holiday makers, and it is just a predetermined tax rate that gets taken out of your paycheck. And at the end of Australia's financial year, which is in June, so the year ends in June, begins in July, you will have to file a tax return as well. So all of that is fairly similar to the US besides the tax year timeframes and when you have to get your taxes done. So if you do have any other work restrictions, it will be listed in your visa grant letter. So definitely make sure to read through that thoroughly. So when you work in Australia, you are protected by the Australian workplace law, and it's very important that you familiarize yourself with those rights and entitlements. So I will definitely leave another link in the description for you so that you can familiarize yourself with that. I would also say look up any state-specific laws in the state that you're working in as well. I've heard way too many stories about people getting taken advantage of in their workplace just because they are on a work and holiday visa, and there is no need for that because you are protected by the law. And the Australian labor laws, I will say, comparatively to the US, are a lot more favorable to the employee versus the employer. So definitely know your rights when it comes to working in Australia. So when it comes to finding a job in Australia, I think it's important to really shift your mindset when it comes to finding a job on the work and holiday visa, because you want to kind of think about it as you finding a job to support your traveling, because at the end of the day, you are here on holiday versus coming here to work. So you're going to find temporary jobs, right? Now, that's not to say that you can't find your dream job in Australia, because that definitely could happen for some people. I just think that in terms of like the US work culture mindset, I think it's important to take yourself away from that and put yourself in the mindset of, okay, I just need to find a job that is going to support me and help me live the lifestyle that I want while I am in Australia. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So now that we've shifted our mindset a bit, let's talk about the 3 different types of work that exist in Australia. The first 2 types of work are very familiar to us, and that is full-time work and part-time work. So full-time work and part-time work are both contracted with your employer, and you are contracted to work a specific amount of hours. Now, in Australia, full-time work is considered 38 hours a week, and part-time work is anything less than 38 hours a week. Now, with both full-time and part-time work, you do get paid time off as well. So the third type of work in Australia is actually the most common job types that work and holiday makers do find, and that is casual work. Now in the US, we do not have casual work, so this is kind of a foreign concept to us. So the best way it makes sense in my head is kind of like contract work, where you are an employee for a specific employer, but you're only working hours on an as needed basis. So that means you're not contracted to work a certain amount of hours per week, and that your hours can vary pretty greatly, just depending on the work that's available at the job. Okay, I'm gonna read the definition of casual work to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So in Australia, casual work is characterized by short-term, non-fixed employment with no set hours or ongoing commitment. That was a very succinct way to say what I just said a few seconds ago before reading that. But basically with casual work, you usually make a higher hourly wage just to make up for the fact that you don't have that consistency in your work. You also don't get any paid time off. So when you hear the term like casual loading, that just means the extra pay that you get, usually hourly, to supplement for not having a consistent schedule and not having any paid time off. But to kind of make sense of that in a bit more of a tangible way, the current minimum wage in Victoria is $24.10 per hour if you have a part-time or a full-time job. And if you do have a casual job, it is 25% more than that. So the hourly rate bumps up to $30.15 an hour. Work and holiday makers are usually going to find casual work much easier than full-time or part-time work, just because from the employer's perspective, they want somebody who can stay at a full-time or part-time job a little bit longer than just 6 months. Whereas casual employment, basically your contract begins and ends at the beginning of your workday and the end of your workday. So there's really no commitment from either side of how long that you can work that job. I'm hoping that all of this is making sense. I'm speaking from my personal experience and also what I've learned about the Australian working culture. So if anybody else has any more information or things to contribute to this conversation, definitely leave a comment below. I would love to continue learning more from other people's perspectives. All right, moving on to some job hunting tips, or like where you can find a job. So in Australia, Indeed exists as it does in the US. And there is another job website called Seek that has a lot of jobs posted daily up there. I personally have not had luck with Seek. However, with Indeed, I at least have had a job interview from that. So I can't say that I recommend Seek. I think there are just an influx of applicants on that website, because every time I have applied for a job on there, it does show you like how many other applicants there are. And even if I was within like the first hour, there were already hundreds of other applicants. So I think it is just a little bit oversaturated at the moment. So can't say I would recommend Seek, but Seek is definitely a good tool to see, what is out there. But in terms of finding work fast, I would say the best bet for you is to just print out your resume and go around to different places that you might want to work and seeing if they're hiring, asking for a manager. I know that sounds kind of old school-ish because we don't really do that in the States, but it works. And I have plenty of people who I know who have found their jobs that way. Obviously, this works best in like the hospitality industry. So think like restaurants, cafes, bars, things like that. They're more likely to hire somebody who they can see their personality versus just, getting a resume online. With that, I think to increase your chances of getting a job like that in the hospitality industry, I think having your RSA, which is your Responsible Service of Alcohol certificate, is definitely a plus, especially if you want to work in a bar or a restaurant. If you already have an RSA, that is just a huge plus for the employer because they don't have to wait for you to get that in order to start working. You do have like a grace period, I believe, if you do get a job that requires an RSA and you don't have one. But it's super easy to get your RSA. You can do it online. I did mine online. And there are several different websites that you can use. I will link the website that I use to get my RSA in the description for you. There are also employment agencies that exist here in Australia that will help you find a job. I personally have not used an agency, so I can't speak to that experience. However, I have seen videos and heard stories of people who have had success using agencies to get some sort of temporary job on a work and holiday visa. So it's definitely possible and might be worth looking into if you are interested in some kind of contract work or temporary like office job type work. Another tip that I have is to network with other travelers, because you just never know how you're going to find out about an opportunity somewhere. Think back to a couple videos ago when I said kind of have a loose plan of your time in Australia and don't try to plan out things too far in advance, because you want to be able to say yes to opportunities that come your way. Same thing here. Network with other people. Maybe somebody you meet is leaving their job and their employer is now hiring to replace them. Like, you just never know. You never know what you're going to come across. Just keep your options open. Like, I have a friend who met somebody random at a bar one night, and within 5 minutes of chatting with them, they literally offered them a job. So you just never know. You just never know. The other way to find a job is actually through Facebook. There are some job pages on Facebook that you can join. There are city-specific ones. So if you are in Melbourne, Perth, Brisbane, etc., there are definitely pages that you can join, and people post in there when they have job opportunities. I know specifically for Melbourne, there is a hospitality specific job page as well. So definitely do some research, look at those. I will say that there are a lot of scammy posts through those Facebook groups, unfortunately. That's just how it goes, I guess, on Facebook. But definitely use your best judgment. If something looks legit, it probably is. And if something is a little bit sketchy, then it also probably is. I have actually found all 3 of my jobs in Australia via Facebook, believe it or not. I feel like with Facebook, and I guess just applying to jobs online in general, it is pretty much just based on luck, right? Like, you're on the right page at the right time and you're able to apply for that job, and the employer sees your application in a timely manner. But yeah, I have had all 3 of my jobs come from Facebook, which is pretty crazy. I will talk briefly about the 3 jobs that I've had in Australia since I have been here on a work and holiday visa. So the first job I had was working in cafes in Melbourne, and I helped open a cafe, which was very exciting. That was my first time ever in a serving job. I had no prior hospitality experience. So kind of like navigating that, and also navigating the newness of everything was really challenging and really fun. And I learned so many new skills and met so many amazing people through that job. So very grateful for that. I actually had the opportunity to work in more than one cafe during that time, because the owner of that cafe that I helped open had 2 other cafes in the city. And since I was a casual employee, my hours were very inconsistent, and the manager was so nice to me and gave me shifts at all 3 cafes, which was really hard because that meant I had to memorize 3 menus, be familiar with 3 different cafes and operations. But like I said, super grateful for that experience, learned so much about myself, about the industry, and it was great. I did work there for just about 6 months. It was like a little bit less than 6 months that I was at that job. And like I said, I found that job through Facebook. The HR manager posted that they were hiring for the new cafe. And if I remember right, I feel like the post was maybe a month old by the time I saw it, but I just took a chance and I sent an email anyway, and the next day I got invited for an interview. So my second job in Australia was actually for my regional work requirement for my visa extension, also known as 88 days in the work and holiday community. I will go more into detail about requirements for 88 days and all of that good stuff in my next video of this series. But just to touch on my experience with that a little bit, again, I found it through Facebook. They posted that they were hiring, and I sent in my application and got an interview and kind of just went from there. I worked out at Lake Argyle, which is in Western Australia. It's in a region called the Kimberley, and it's a very popular tourist destination in the winter season because it does stay warm up there. It's super beautiful. I was working for a lake cruise company doing reservations and receptionist work at the office. And yeah, it was definitely a challenging experience because where I was living was so remote, and going from living in a city to living 70 Ks away from the closest grocery store was definitely an adjustment. But like I said, I will talk more about that in my next video because I love talking about that experience. And now I am working a newish job. I've been at the job for just over 2 weeks. It did take me 4 months to find a job this time around. I'm not sure if that has to do with the time of year, or maybe I was just not using the right strategies to look for jobs. I will say that I was being a little bit more picky about the job that I wanted to look for this time around, which probably wasn't in my best interest. I just wanted to experience something a little bit different. And now I'm working at a temporary attraction in Melbourne. It is more in that like travel, tourism, entertainment realm that I wanted to stay in. And so far it's been going really well. My coworkers are really cool. I like the management team. Everyone's really nice and approachable. And the job itself is really fun because I get to make people smile. To close out this video, I just want to acknowledge that hunting for a job is not easy. It is extremely, extremely tiring, exhausting. It's discouraging a lot of the time as well. So just want to acknowledge how hard it is to really just like, for lack of a better term, like start over in a new country and try to get your footing. And on top of that, have to find a job that will support you at the same time. It's not an easy thing. And I want you to know that you have somebody supporting you and rooting for you in this now that you've found my channel and have watched my videos. So good luck in the job hunt, and I can't wait to see you thriving in your new job in Australia. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have learned something in this video, and if you have any questions, work-related or otherwise, about the work and holiday visa, just put them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them based on my own experience, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.